We say we love ourselves, but we don't love ourselves. We don't truly love ourselves. We love our character. And we don't even love our character. We hate our character. But we have to say we love our character. That's that toxic positivity. If you want to change, you have to realize and take things for what they are. That's the first step, is recognition. And then acceptance. You have to accept it. You can't just go, oh, well, that's just the way it is. That's just the way I am. I'm just an asshole because I have to be. I'm just a rigorous, very strict person because that's who I have to be. I'm just riddled with anxiety because that's just the way this world is. I'm just constantly on edge because that's just the kind of environment I'm in. No. You have to recognize that. You have to accept it. And then what you need to do is start healing. You need to reclaim the power, the faculties of your mind, guys. Your reasoning, your intellect. And what is reasoning? Reasoning is the ability to think deeper than slave think. Reasoning is not, okay, so you're thinking, you realize things are messed up. But instead of just going with that old excuse of, just the way it is, what you're going to do is you're going to start processing those thoughts. And then you're going to come to conclusions. And those types of conclusions will be, oh, the education system was founded in the 1900s by Rockefeller, who modeled it after 1700s Prussia. The 1700 Prussia system was built to raise children up from the ages of 8 to 14 for service in their military, to create obedient, loyal soldiers. That's what our compulsory schooling system was set up after. Because Rockefeller and these assholes needed bodies, slaves, to work in these factories. But nobody wanted to work in a factory back then. So Rockefeller had a good idea in the 1900s. He said, I'm going to work with the government and we'll make it mandatory to put these kids in compulsory schooling. And now we have our modern day education system, guys. That's exactly how our education system in America was founded. Off of 1700s Prussia. So just that fact right there alone should have you guys pulling your kids out of the education system, or at the very least telling your kids that you love them and that you don't give a fuck if they fail out of this fucking indoctrination system. Why do we put so much stress on our children? Most of the parents I know, as my kids were growing up when they were younger, most parents I knew hated when there was a snow day because the kids had off school. That's how much parents don't want to be around their children. Parents are literally, in America, they are literally acting as agents of the state. Like I've said many, many times, guys, you name, number, and inventory your child into a state-operated system, slavery system. You immediately allow the state to put toxic chemicals into their body yearly, and then upon the age of 4 or 5 years old, you are enrolling them in compulsory indoctrination centers where they will be tested daily for compliance. At that point in time, their teachers will be spending more time with your child than you do. Already by that time, most children are spending more time with screens than with their parents. And guys, the whole entertainment industry is set up with the CIA and the government's involvement. You see, this is a whole slavery system we are born into, guys. This system works together cohesively to ensure the proper enslavement of each and every individual through their childhood, through their adolescence, and into adulthood. Us as parents are the only hedge against, we are the only defense for our child. And as I said, what do we do as parents? Immediately upon birth, even before birth, we bring them into extremely stressed out households. Guys, 75% of Americans are either homeless or just barely hanging on to a place over their heads. 75%, 3 out of every 4, guys. All it would take is losing one job, one tiny disaster, and these families would be out on the street. And it happens every day. The homeless population is so underreported. It's sickening. I have a feeling, I really believe after a lot of looking into it, that probably 20% of Americans are homeless. And another 50% are right on the edge of homelessness, barely surviving every month. And instead of having humanity for each other, we just want to judge, point fingers, laugh at. We'd rather sit there and admire and give all our attention to the Kardashians and our neighbor we can watch go homeless without even batting an eye. And go, I wonder what he did to deserve that. It's disgusting, guys. And we don't realize it, again, because throughout our lives, we've come up with so many copes to even be able to function. You know, we have to have our coffee in the morning. We have to, tune into this program at this time. And if we don't get it, we get completely stressed and we can't be around anybody because we'll go off and we're not in charge of our emotions anymore. We're losing our children, guys. Our children are voluntarily checking out. They're checking out from this environment, they're checking out from this society, and they're checking out from their own families. They're checking out from all of this toxic trauma that surrounds us. They're tired of the abuse, and they're afraid because they're looking around and all they see are zombies, adult zombies that just want compliance, that are emotionally deregulated, that are emotionally unstable, that at any point can just go into a frenzy because they're so loaded down and overburdened with superfluous shit. My niece was asking for a safe space at my brother's house, and instead of a safe space was getting passive aggressive and outright abusive treatment. Not physically, she wasn't being beaten. You don't need to be beaten, guys. And that's so sad. They've socially programmed us here in America to where the only things, we're living such abusive, toxic environment and society here in America that we think they've programmed us to think that the abuse is only sexual abuse against a woman or terrorist actions. Abuse by definition, guys, is misuse. Misuse of another human is enslaving them to a job 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week, 2 jobs, whatever it might be, to just make enough financially to get by, giving them all the copes, bread and circuses in the world so that way they can continue to function in those jobs, telling them that it's mandatory, that their job, everybody's job is mandatory, that you got to work, that you got to do this. How's society going to keep going if you don't? While the very top just keep getting richer, just keep using us and abusing us, and we allow it to happen. We knowingly allow it to happen. Our children aren't taking it, guys. My niece isn't taking it. She left. She hadn't seen her brother, that's the closest person in the world to her. She hadn't seen him in the longest period of time of her life. And she was waiting till the end of the month for him to get to her dad's so that way she could visit with him for a couple weeks before moving down here. But she was so on the edge, on the verge of not being able to take it anymore, that she had to secretly get out of there early. She had to get away from her toxic, trauma-filled environment because she wanted to heal and she wasn't fucking around. And like I said, all I'm doing is giving her a safe space. I had to talk her out of getting a job. At least for the first couple months. I don't care how many months, but at least for the first couple months. That way she can start to break down some of these old barriers and focus on herself for once, instead of having to watch younger children or get good grades in an indoctrination center or clean a house or clean up after pets or do dishes. You know what I'm saying? That's all she needed, was a safe space, guys. That's all these kids need. That's all your child needs. They need a safe space and they need you to be truthful with them. And if you don't know what the truth is, you need to tell them that. Because all they want is honesty. And when you lie to your kids, you're not lying to your kids, you're lying to yourself. You're hurting your kids because they know your lies. Your kids smile at your face because they are in survival programming, because that's where you put them as a baby. They're doing what they have to do to survive in this sick environment that you've created for them. It's up to you to change that environment, or you're going to lose your kid. I mean, you may not care, but what does that say about you? What does that say about you when the one thing that you're responsible for raising and is a reflection of who you are and what you stand for is so fucked up and you want to complain about that thing all the time? What does that say about you? You guys are so lost in the sauce, and you guys haven't had any critical thinking done in so long, and your common sense has been so pushed back. You guys are on such slave thinking, group think, that you can literally sit there and look at the one example of your life that you should be pointing to show your successes, and all you're doing is breaking that thing down and making fun of it and saying it's not enough and it's not good enough. What does that say about you guys? It says you're a piss poor parent, is what it is. It says that you never were a parent. You never took that responsibility. You were simply an agent of the state babysitting. You were babysitting this child for the state until it was old enough to go into the indoctrination centers. And then you made sure, because see, your job as a parent in this sick, toxic environment is to make sure that your children attend these compulsory schools and get good grades. That is your job. Otherwise, the state will send CPS into your house to see what's going on and why that child can't perform and comply properly. And then the state will tell you, we want this child on highly toxic medications, that way because we believe that will help them perform and fit into society better. And 90% of parents don't even question. They say, oh yes, I think so too. I know. My son, my daughter, they have a problem sitting still and listening. They won't even listen to me. You guys are self-righteous. You guys are hurting your children. You need to stop. You need to stop perpetuating the abuse. You need to stop pushing these systems of governance and authority. You need to stop showing your children how to be good slaves. And you need to get real honest with yourself and even more honest with your child. Because I'll tell you what, as soon as you break down and start being honest with your child about the position we're all in and what's really going on and how you really feel, how much it really hurts you to have to get up every fucking morning and slave away at a job and then come home and do the same fucking thing. As soon as you're honest with your kids about that, you are going to start finally, no matter how, let's say your kid's 14, you haven't done that a day in your life. At 14 years old, you will finally start establishing a parent-child relationship with your child. Until you do that, your child is you're confusing it. Your child is confused. It doesn't know. Because the one person that is responsible for showing it love, care, empathy, has never done any of those three things since it was born. Guys, after you reclaim, after you acknowledge the systems of governance we're in, the slavery system we're in, the slave think that you've been in your whole life, that's our reasoning. That's your reasoning. You're regaining control of the faculty of your mind of reasoning. And then the third step of reasoning is now acting. Behaving in the way that you know is right. It's very simple. And once you reclaim the faculties of your mind, you will start to detach from all this 3D illusory material world. This is called true freedom. This is how you become free in an unfree society, guys. You must free your mind first. Speak truth. Align your thoughts, your words, your actions, and detach from the 3D illusory material world that keeps you on the hamster wheel. The right question is not how. How do I do that? You can answer that for yourself through your common sense and critical thinking, guys. You have to trust yourself. The question is when? And the answer is now. There's no other time but now. People die from the weirdest shit constantly. I know I didn't want to leave this hellhole until I made things right. That's what I'm trying to do now. Make things right.